Imagine the very center of the civilized world, the Roman Forum, the place where the fates of nations were decided and the greatest speeches in history were delivered. But today it does not smell of incense or victory. There hangs the heavy, sickly sweet scent of decay. On the main platform of Rome, right where the consuls used to stand, what remains of the greatest mind of the era now hangs on rusty nails. A severed head and two hands. Hands that wrote laws which survived for millennia. How was the father of the fatherland reduced to a slab of meat displayed for the mob's amusement? Why did a 19-year-old young man, whom this man called his son, sell him out to executioners in cold blood? In this story, we will uncover the anatomy of the loudest political assassination of antiquity. You will learn about a secret deal on a foggy island where three predators divided the world and traded the lives of their relatives like playing cards.
We will tell you about the death lists that turned the murder of citizens into a profitable business, and about a woman whose revenge proved more sophisticated than any weapon, the one who pierced the dead tongue of her enemy with a golden hairpin. This is the story of how a single signature destroyed 500 years of freedom. Watch to the end to find out how the Roman Republic actually died, and what terrifying price was paid for the birth of the empire. Imagine that smell. It hits your nose before you even realize what is happening. It is not the familiar stench of Roman sewers, nor the aroma of incense from the Temple of Vesta. It is the heavy, sweet spirit of dried blood and decomposition hanging in the cold December air of the year 43 BC. You are standing in the center of the world, the Roman Forum, the place where the heart of civilization beats, where the destinies of peoples are decided, where the word was always sharper than the sword. But today, the silence is so deep that the ring of a coin falling on marble would sound like a clap of thunder. Thousands of people are frozen. They do not scream, they do not argue, they barely even breathe. Their eyes are riveted to one point, to the Rostra. Look there, right now. Do not look away like the cowardly senators hiding their faces in the folds of their togas. The Rostra is the holy of holies of Roman democracy, a podium adorned with the rams of captured enemy ships. From here, the greatest orators spoke. From here, they controlled the crowd. But today, the podium has been turned into a butcher shop. There is no living person on it. Displayed there is what remains of the greatest mind of the age. Where the consul once stood, a human head is now mounted on roughly hewn stakes. The skin is pale, parchment-like, with that earthy hue that only appears after the heart stops pumping life. Deep wrinkles on the forehead, traces of decades of intense thought and sleepless nights in the name of the state, have now smoothed out in the frightening calm of death. The thin gray hair is ruffled by the icy wind. Every citizen of Rome knows this face. You have seen him on coins. You have seen him in the courts. You saw him when he saved the city from the conspiracy of Catiline. This is Marcus Tullius Cicero, the father of the fatherland, and he is dead. But look lower. The horror of this scene is not in the severed head. Rome has seen many deaths. The horror is in the details. Just below the head, nailed with rusty spikes directly to the wood of the podium, hang two hands, the right and the left. They have turned blue from the cold and lack of blood, the fingers curled as if still trying to hold an invisible stylus. Why? Why such barbaric cruelty? Why dismember a 63-year-old man and display his parts like hunting trophies? Because this is a message. And it is addressed personally to you. Mark Antony, the new master of Rome, did not just kill his enemy. He executed the very instrument of his power. These hands wrote the Philippics, a series of devastating speeches that tore the mask of a hero off Antony and revealed him as a drunken tyrant. These hands signed the decrees of the Senate. These hands wrote philosophical treatises on duty and friendship that would be read for 2,000 years. And that is exactly why they are nailed up. It is a manifesto. Antony is saying to Rome, "Look, intellect is powerless. The law is dead. Your eloquence is nothing before my steel." Imagine the flies beginning to circle the blackened flesh despite the December cold. Some patrician in the front row cannot handle it and begins to vomit right onto the sacred stones of the forum. But no one laughs. Fear, sticky and cold as the fog from the Tiber, creeps under everyone's clothes. You think this is just an execution? No, it is a funeral. At this very moment, looking into the empty eye sockets of Cicero, the Roman Republic breathes its last. 500 years of freedom, elections, the right of veto, it all ended here, on the blood-stained planks of the Rostra. The argument of force has finally defeated the force of argument. Grasp the irony. The man who believed all his life in the power of the word, who said that arms must yield to the toga, ended up with his tongue and hands becoming decorations for the triumph of brute force. The crowd is silent because they understand. If they could do this to Cicero, to the untouchable, to the legend, to the voice of the nation, then what will they do to a simple shopkeeper? What will they do to you if you dare whisper something against them? The centurions standing in the cordon are smirking. They feel like the masters of a new era, an era where you do not need to learn rhetoric, an era where the one with the legion is right. Before your eyes, the very fabric of reality is changing. Yesterday, Rome was a state of laws. Today, it is a state of executioners. Look closely at those dead hands one more time. Frozen in them is a silent question to descendants, to us. What is your freedom of speech worth if you have to pay for every letter with a drop of blood? Are you ready to speak the truth, knowing that your head might end up on the next stake? Cicero made his choice, and he paid in full. But how did we get here? How did the great city stoop so low that the head of its best defender was displayed for the amusement of the rabble, like the head of a runaway slave? After all, just recently it seemed that tyranny had been defeated. Just recently, after the Ides of March, the air smelled not of blood, but of the intoxicating hope for rebirth. To understand this finale, we need to rewind time. We need to go back to the moment when the body of another giant still lay warm on the floor of Pompey's theater, and the world froze in anticipation of chaos. To the moment when the power vacuum began to suck the most dangerous predators of the Mediterranean into its black funnel. To where it all began. March of the year 44 BC, Rome resembles a disturbed anthill into which boiling water has just been poured. Can you feel this electrified air? It is not the joy of liberation. It is panic. Gaius Julius Caesar is dead. 23 knife wounds. The tyrant fell at the foot of the statue of his enemy, Pompey. You would think, open the wine, put on festive togas, the Republic is saved. But look at the streets. No one is celebrating. The shops are closed, doors are barricaded. People are afraid to go outside because they understand the terrible truth that the idealistic assassins missed. They killed the man, but they did not kill the power. Brutus and Cassius, those noble liberators with bloody daggers, made a fatal mistake. They did not have a plan for the next day. They thought freedom would return on its own, like the sunrise. Idiots. They created a vacuum, and the nature of power, like the nature of physics, abhors a vacuum. Into this black hole immediately rush the most dangerous predators the world has ever seen. Look at the first of them, Mark Antony. There he stands in the forum, tall, broad-shouldered, with a bull's neck and the face of a man used to taking everything from life without asking permission. He is not a philosopher. He is a soldier. The darling of the legions, Caesar's drinking buddy, a man who can drink all night and lead troops into an attack in the morning. The intellectuals in the Senate turn up their noses at him. They consider him a drunkard, a womanizer, a crude martinet. A gladiator, they whisper with contempt. What a monstrous underestimation. While the senators make beautiful speeches about freedom, Antony acts. He seizes Caesar's house. He seizes the treasury, 700 million sesterces. He seizes the dictator's archives, and suddenly it turns out that all the levers of imperial control are in the hands of this drunkard. He starts stamping laws, claiming that this is what Caesar wanted. Need to appoint your man as governor? Please, here is a draft by Caesar. Need to steal 1 million? Here is another note from the deceased. Antony turns the legacy of his dead friend into his personal ATM and forge of power. He is sure the crown is already in his pocket. Who would dare challenge him? Brutus and Cassius fled to the east to save their skins. The Senate trembles. The legions idolize him. He is the new Caesar, only without the mercy and with a much larger appetite for luxury. But a second player enters the stage. The old lion returns to the hunt, Marcus Tullius Cicero. He is 62 years old. For Rome at that time, a very old man. He spent his last years in political exile at his villas, mourning his deceased daughter and the ruined republic, writing treatises on how the world works. He seemed like written-off material, a dusty exhibit from the museum of the Golden Age. But Caesar's murder injects adrenaline into his veins like an elixir of youth. Cicero sees the chaos as his last chance, a chance not just to return, but to become the savior of the nation. He believes that his word still carries weight. He believes that the power of intellect can tame beasts with swords. What a majestic, tragic delusion. He looks at Antony and sees not a threat, but a target. Cicero despises Antony with every cell of his body. For the refined orator, this crude warrior is the embodiment of everything destroying Rome. Lawlessness, drunkenness, arrogance. We got rid of the tyrant, but not the tyranny, Cicero writes to friends. He decides to give battle. He has no army, no gold, no hired assassins. He has only a voice. But that voice once forced kings to bow their heads. Cicero begins to weave an intrigue that should return power to the Senate. He needs a sword to crush Antony, and here fate throws Rome a surprise. A dark horse on whom no one would have bet a broken penny. An 18-year-old young man arrives in Italy, Gaius Octavius. Look at him, frail, sickly, always wrapping himself in warm cloaks even in summer. He has a weak stomach. He is afraid of thunder and lightning. He does not know how to fight with swords. His face is covered in pimples, and the look in his watery eyes seems frightened. Seriously? This is the heir of the great Caesar? When Antony sees him for the first time, he barely holds back laughter. "Boy," he throws out. Antony does not even stand up to greet him. He calls him the boy who owes everything only to his name. How wrong they all are. Behind this nondescript appearance hides the coldest, most calculating computer of the ancient world. Octavian is a block of ice. He lacks Antony's passions. He lacks Cicero's vanity. There is only a naked, crystal-clear thirst for power and phenomenal patience. He learns that Caesar adopted him in his will.
Now he is Gaius Julius Caesar Octavian. He demands his inheritance. Antony laughs in his face. "The money is spent, kid. Go back to school." Anyone else would have cried and run away. Octavian merely narrows his eyes slightly. He remembers the insult and begins his game. He sells his own lands, borrows money from friends to pay out the gifts to the people promised by Caesar. He buys the loyalty of veterans. He walks around Rome quiet and humble, portraying the respectful son who simply wants to honor his father's memory. And here Cicero makes a fatal mistake. A mistake that will cost him his life and Rome its freedom.
The old orator looks at the boy and thinks, "Oh, this is the perfect tool. I will use his popularity among the veterans against Antony. I will be his mentor. I will control him like a puppeteer controls a puppet. We will destroy Antony with the hands of this youngster, and then we will push him aside." In his letters, Cicero drops a phrase, the cynicism of which chills the blood. The young man must be praised, distinguished, and elevated. In Latin, the word tollendum has a double meaning: to raise to the heavens and to remove from the path, or simply, to kill. Cicero is sure he has outsmarted everyone. He thinks he is holding a wolf by the ears, but in reality, he is petting a tiger cub that is already tasting his hand. By the summer of the year 44, the board is set. 3 figures, 3 mortal enemies. Antony is a furious bull, feeling power slip from his hands, ready to crush everything in his path. Octavian is a venomous snake hiding in the grass, waiting for the moment to strike. And Cicero is the tamer who stepped into the arena with a whip against predators, forgetting to lock the cage. The air in the Senate becomes stifling with lies. Everyone smiles at each other, hiding stones in their bosoms. Alliances are made in the morning and broken by lunch. In the corridors, they whisper of civil war. Antony realizes he is losing Rome and decides to take the provinces by force to regain his power. He gathers legions. It is at this moment that Cicero decides to strike. He can no longer remain silent. He ascends the Senate podium not as an old man, but as the prosecutor of the Republic. He fills his lungs with air to speak words that will declare war on the most dangerous man in the state. He begins his Philippics. This is no longer politics. This is a duel. A duel where on one side is brilliant rhetoric and centuries of tradition, and on the other is naked steel and the rage of an insulted soldier. Cicero thinks he is writing history. In reality, he is signing his own death warrant. The silence in the Senate hall is replaced by a hum. The first word is cast. While the echo of the first word still hangs under the temple vaults, Marcus Tullius Cicero turns the air into acid. Have you ever seen an execution without an axe? Right now, in the stuffy hall of the Senate, exactly that is happening. Cicero is not just speaking. He is methodically, layer by layer, flaying the skin off Mark Antony. This is not a political debate. This is verbal destruction. 14 speeches, 14 dagger blows, each aimed at the most vulnerable spot. History will call them the Philippics, in honor of Demosthenes' speeches against King Philip. But that name is too noble for the filth Cicero pours on his enemy's head. Listen to his voice. It thunders, it whispers, it breaks into a scream. The 62-year-old man seems to have shed 30 years. He is a consul again. He is a savior again. He paints a portrait of Antony not as a Roman general, but as an animal. "Remember!" Cicero screams, pointing a finger into the void where Antony should be sitting. And the senators remember. Cicero describes how Antony, stone-drunk, vomited right on the tribunal in front of the entire Roman people, filling the fold of his own toga with chunks of undigested food, smelling of cheap wine. What vileness! What a disgrace for a Roman! The hall explodes with indignation. Cicero strikes further. He accuses Antony of turning Pompey the Great's house into a brothel where prostitutes and actors drink from the cups of ancestors. He calls him a thief who forged Caesar's will. He calls him a slave to his passions. It is brilliant. It is disgusting. It is effective. The Senate, trembling with fear only yesterday, now roars with delight.
Cicero gave them what they craved.
A sense of moral superiority.
They feel that if they call a monster, it will disappear. They laugh at Antony. They despise him. They believe the power of the word can stop legions. And in this frenzy, they make the ultimate deal with the devil. To destroy Antony, Cicero needs an army, and he turns to the boy, to Octavian. The Senate legalizes the private army of the young Caesar. Just think, the highest authority in Rome gives official powers to a 19-year-old youth who has no political experience, no right to command, only a stolen name and money. Cicero convinces everyone, this young man is our sword. He hates Antony more than we do. We will use him, and when the deed is done, he smiles significantly. We will praise him, distinguish him, and elevate him. By January of the year 43, the illusion of victory becomes complete. The Senate declares a state of emergency. Antony is declared an enemy of the state. The legions of the consuls, together with the army of young Octavian, march north to crush the rebel. Cicero remains in Rome. He is the unofficial ruler of the Republic. His house is overflowing with petitioners. He thinks he has brought back the Golden Age. He writes letters full of self-admiration. I saved the state. He is sure Octavian is his obedient puppet. After all, the boy is so respectful. He calls Cicero father. He swears allegiance to the Senate. He humbly asks for advice. What a charming, safe young man. But while Cicero revels in his eloquence, somewhere in the north, in the mud of military camps, reality is sharpening knives. Cicero's words reach Antony, not as speeches in the Senate, but as pamphlets read by soldiers around campfires. Do you think Antony was ashamed? Do you think he blushed at the stories of his drunken vomiting? Number. Rage fills his eyes with blood. Every insult thrown by Cicero, every mockery, every metaphor. Antony adds all this to the piggy bank of his hatred. He does not write speeches in response. He does not look for beautiful turns of phrase. He simply remembers. I will cut out that tongue, he surely thinks, listening to another libel. I will make those hands fall silent forever. For Antony, this is no longer politics. It is a personal vendetta. Cicero violated the unwritten code of the elite. You can kill an opponent, but you cannot humiliate his dignity before the rabble. The orator thought he was destroying the enemy's reputation, but in fact, he was turning a political opponent into a deadly beast with nothing left to lose. And what about Octavian, our humble son of the Senate? He leads his legions into battle against Antony at Mutina. The battle is fierce. 2 consuls of the Republic die. Antony is defeated and flees. It would seem victory. Cicero in Rome rejoices. The Republic is saved. The beast runs with its tail between its legs. The boy has done his job. Time to take away his toys. An order flies from Rome. Octavian is to hand over command of the legions to Decimus Brutus. Thank you, kid. You are free to go. The Senate no longer needs your services. We won't even give you a triumph. You'll make do with an ovation. And here, at this very moment, when the spring wind of the year 43 carries the scent of blood from the fields of Mutina,
something happens that anyone who had ever looked into Octavian's cold eyes should have foreseen. The Senate's order reaches the victor's camp. The soldiers listen to it in dead silence. Hand over command to Caesar's murderer? Us, Julius's veterans? For the sake of a bunch of windbags in togas? Octavian reads the scroll and slowly rolls it up. A barely noticeable, serpentine smile plays on his lips. He is not going to obey. Cicero forgot one simple lesson of history. He who has the army never obeys him who has only beautiful words. Octavian realizes he was used, and he decides it is time to change roles. The puppet cuts the strings. The sword that the Senate so carefully sharpened against Antony suddenly turns its point in the opposite direction. Instead of pursuing the defeated Antony, Octavian turns his 8 legions around. They do not go north. They do not go east. They go south, to Rome. The masks are off. The time of orators is over. The time of executioners begins. The August sun of the year 43 melts the stones of the Eternal City, but the senators in the Curia are breaking out in a cold sweat. The scene unfolding before their eyes is unthinkable. In the Holy of Holies of Rome, where it is forbidden to enter with weapons, stands not a senator, not an ambassador, but a centurion. His name is Cornelius. He is covered in road dust. He smells of horse sweat and the barracks. He does not ask for an audience. He has come to collect a debt. Behind him, just a few days' march away, stand 8 legions. The very legions the Senate so recklessly entrusted to the obedient boy Octavian for the war with Antony. Now the boy demands payment. He wants the consulship. He is 19 years old. Under Roman law, to become a consul, one must have lived 42 years and passed all stages of a political career. Octavian's demand is not just a violation of the law. It is a spit in the face of the centuries-old constitution. It is absurd. Cicero, sitting in his chair, looks at this rough soldier with the arrogant smile of an intellectual. How dare they? We are the Senate of Rome. We command kings. We just defeated Antony. Will some youngster really dictate terms to us? The senators laugh. They refuse. They speak of traditions, of age, of order. Let the boy wait, someone throws from the back rows. And then happens the thing that changes the rules of the game forever. Centurion Cornelius slowly pulls back the flap of his cloak. His hand rests on the hilt of his gladius, the short Roman sword that conquered half the world. He sweeps a heavy gaze over the frightened old men in togas, then looks straight into Cicero's eyes and utters a phrase that sounds like a sentence for the entire Republican system. If you do not give him the consulship, then this will. He slaps his palm on the sword hilt. The ring of metal in the dead silence of the Senate sounds louder than thousands of Cicero's speeches. In that second, the world of illusions collapses. All political philosophy, all complex schemes of checks and balances, all faith in sacred right, all turns to dust. It turns out that power is not voting in the comitia. Power is steel. And he who holds this steel no longer intends to listen to those who hold only a writing stylus. Octavian does not wait for a second invitation. He does not write plaintive letters. He gives the order. On to Rome! Imagine the terror. For the first time since Sulla, Roman legions are marching on their own city not to protect it, but to take it by the throat. Are the soldiers reluctant? Oh no. Octavian, this weak youth, turned out to be a brilliant populist. He promised every legionary 2,500 denarii from the state treasury. For that kind of money, they are ready to make even his horse a consul. Cicero rushes around his house on the Palatine. He tries to organize a defense. But whom to defend? And with whom? The Senate has only 2 legions, just arrived from Africa. They are supposed to be the shield of the Republic. Cicero rides out to them, delivers a fiery speech about freedom, about duty to ancestors. The soldiers listen to him, nod, and the next morning defect to Octavian. Why? Because Cicero offered them beautiful words, and Octavian, dead Caesar's gold. Rome is seized by panic. The rich bury treasures in their gardens. Senators' wives run to the temples. The expectation of a massacre hangs in the air. Everyone remembers what happens when an army enters the city. But Octavian plays it subtler. He does not want to look like an invader. He wants to look like a savior, forced by circumstances. His legions occupy the Campus Martius. The youth enters the city. He does not loot, he does not kill, yet. He simply goes to the temple of Jupiter Capitolinus, surrounded by bodyguards with drawn swords. He seizes the state treasury and immediately pays the promised money to the soldiers, right before the eyes of the shocked people. Look at this gesture. He demonstratively shows who is now the real master of money and life. The Senate, which controlled finances for centuries, stands aside like a beggar on a church porch. The election of consuls turns into a farce. Octavian appoints himself consul along with his cousin Quintus Pedius. He is 19. He is a boy who hasn't even really started shaving. But when he sits in the curule chair, surrounded by 12 lictors with fasces, no one dares to smile. Where is Cicero, the great orator who just a month ago was the unofficial ruler of Rome? He is crushed. He sits at his villa, listening to the news brought by slaves, and every word drives a nail into the lid of his coffin. He realizes he made a fatal, monstrous mistake. He thought he would use Octavian as a sword against Antony, but the sword turned out to be alive, angry, and possessing a will of its own. We elevated him so that he would destroy us, he bitterly admits. And Octavian does not keep them waiting. The new consul's very first act is to revoke the amnesty for Caesar's assassins. Brutus and Cassius, heroes of the Republic, are officially declared criminals. The hunt for them is open. The Lex Pedia is passed unanimously. The very senators who applauded Caesar's murder now vote for the death of his killers.
Fear is an amazing motivator. It makes even the stiffest backs flexible.
But Rome is not enough for Octavian. He looks at the map. In the north, licking his wounds, sits Mark Antony. He is still dangerous. He has a huge army. Malcontents flock to him. In the east, Brutus and Cassius are gathering forces. Octavian understands. He has captured Rome, but he is in a ring of enemies. The Senate is defeated, but the real war is still ahead. He needs allies. And here happens a turn, the cynicism of which makes even sophisticated Romans dizzy. Octavian, the son of Caesar who swore to take revenge on Antony, who called him an enemy of the fatherland, suddenly stops his troops. He writes a letter, not to Brutus, not to Cicero. He writes to Mark Antony. "Why should we fight each other," reads between the lines, "if we can divide this world among 3? The young wolf realizes he cannot handle it alone. He needs the strength of the old bull.
And he is ready to betray all his oaths, betray the Senate, betray Cicero who brought him to power. Pragmatism defeats hatred. The wind changes. Now it blows not from the Forum, but from the north, where in the fogs of the Reno River,
a meeting is already being prepared that will drown Rome in blood. Octavian takes off the mask of the Republic's defender. Beneath it, there never was the face of an idealist. There was always the cold grin of the future emperor. Cicero feels the noose tightening. He hears thunder rumbling in the distance beyond the city walls. But it is not the wrath of Jupiter. It is the footsteps of inevitability. Three predators, Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus, begin moving toward each other. They go not to fight, they go to negotiate. And woe to those whose names end up superfluous on their guest list. Imagine a scene from a cheap gangster movie, only instead of the smoky basements of Chicago, a foggy islet on a river near Bononia.
November of the year 43 BC.
The cold chills to the bone. The Reno River, swollen from autumn rains, carries murky water resembling diluted cheap wine. On both banks, as far as the eye can see, stand legions. 43 legions. Hundreds of thousands of armed men, who just yesterday were preparing to kill each other, now stand in dead silence, looking at a patch of land in the middle of the river. There, in that damp fog, the fate of the world is being decided. The bridges are destroyed. This is not a precaution. This is paranoia. No one trusts anyone. Only 3 cross to the island. No guards, no secretaries, no witnesses. Only 3 people who hate each other more than anything in the world, but are forced to unite because alone they will be devoured. Mark Antony, Gaius Octavian, and Marcus Aemilius Lepidus. Look at this meeting. There is nothing of the grandeur of the Roman Senate here. No marble statues and pompous speeches about the public good.
This is a sit-down.
The largest criminal showdown in the history of antiquity. Before sitting at the negotiating table, they, the masters of the world, pat each other down. They are looking for daggers under the folds of clothing. Imagine the humiliation of this moment. A consul of Rome and a great general groping each other like guards in a prison. Trust here is an empty sound. There is only the fear of getting a knife in the ribs. They sit down. Octavian, as consul, takes the seat in the center. Antony and Lepidus on the sides. They sit on simple folding chairs while the river roars around them, cutting them off from the rest of humanity. What do they talk about? Saving the Republic? Laws? Do not make me laugh. They take out a map. 3 days. For 3 long days they divide the world like a pie. A plain parchment marked with ink becomes a sentence for millions of people. Antony, that insatiable bull, takes Gaul for himself, a source of gold and fierce warriors.
Lepidus, rich but weak, receives Spain and Narbonensis Gaul.
He gets the scraps, but he is too stupid to realize he is the odd one out here. And what about Octavian? The young predator gets Africa, Sicily, and Sardinia. It seems Octavian has been shortchanged. Sicily is under the control of the pirate Sextus Pompey. Africa is far away. But look into his cold eyes. He does not argue. He does not need lands right now. He needs legitimacy. He needs time to grow fangs. He gives up territory to win a life. They call it the Second Triumvirate. But do not let the name fool you. The first triumvirate of Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus was a secret alliance of influence. This alliance is an official coup d'état that they intend to write into law. They invent a title for themselves, triumvirs for the organization of the Republic. What a monstrous lie. With the same success, wolves could call themselves the Commission for the Protection of Sheep. Their goal is not organization, but dismantling. A complete, total dismantling of the old world to build their personal dictatorship on its ruins. Tension hangs in the air. They have divided the lands, but the main problem remains: money. War is expensive. Legionaries need to be paid,
or they will raise their swords against their own commanders. Antony looks at Octavian. Octavian looks at Lepidus. They are bankrupt. The treasury is empty. The estates are ruined. They need hundreds of millions of denarii right now. Where to get them? And here, under the sound of the November rain, an idea is born that should have made even the river water turn red. If you do not have money, you must take it from those who do. But in Rome, private property is sacred. You cannot just go and rob a senator, unless that senator is an enemy of the state. Enemy of the state is a magic phrase. It removes any moral prohibitions. The dead do not need money. A criminal's property goes to the treasury, and they now control the treasury. The logic is murderously simple. The more rich people we declare enemies, the richer we become. The atmosphere on the island changes. The world map is rolled up and put aside. A blank sheet of papyrus appears on the table. Now they are not dividing provinces. Now they are dividing lives. They begin to draw up lists. This is not spontaneous anger. This is cold, calculating accounting of death. Antony remembers everyone who looked at him askance in the Senate. Octavian, that boy with the memory of an elephant, writes in the names of those who called him an upstart. Lepidus, trying not to lag behind, adds his personal ill wishes, even his own brother Paulus. Imagine this surreal bargaining. "I will give you my uncle's head if you give me your brother's head," says one. "Agreed, but then let's write in that guy whose villa I like in Campania," answers the other. They trade relatives and friends like boys trade dice. No pity, no sentimentality. "Could you shake the hand of your father's murderer for the sake of power?" you ask. Octavian not only shakes it, he embraces Antony. He sits at the same table with the man who mocked Caesar's memory and drinks wine with him, because right now it is profitable for him to be the murderer's friend. In that moment on the island, the last thing that remained human in Roman politics dies. Concepts of honor, loyalty, kinship, all thrown into the bonfire of ambition. Only the naked pragmatism of predators locked in a single cage remains. It gets dark. The fog becomes thicker, hiding the faces of the triumvirs, but the list on the table grows. It gets longer by the hour. Dozens of names, hundreds. Senators, equestrians, orators, merchants. The best people of Rome. The flower of the nation turns into ink lines on a death warrant. But one name stands apart. Antony waited for this moment for 3 days. He leans over the table, his heavy breath escaping as steam from his mouth. He pokes a thick finger at the parchment and pronounces the name he hates more than anything in the world. The name of the man who humiliated him before the whole world. The name that became synonymous with the word republic. Marcus Tullius Cicero. Octavian freezes. Cicero called him son. Cicero introduced him to the Senate. Cicero gave him an army. Cicero is his political father. Antony looks at the youth with a challenge. This is a test. If you want to be with us, you must bind yourself with blood. You must sacrifice the one who created you. Octavian hesitates. Not out of pity, no. He is a pragmatist. He knows that killing Cicero will make him a pariah in the eyes of the intelligentsia. He tries to bargain. He offers other names. He offers money. The argument lasts 2 days. For 2 days, Octavian holds the defense, trying to save his mentor. But Antony is implacable. Either Cicero's head or no alliance. And Octavian surrenders. He takes the stylus and puts a check mark next to his teacher's name. In that moment, under the scratching of the pen on the damp island, he kills the remnants of youthful idealism in himself.
He sells his father for a third of the world. The deal is sealed. The triumvirs stand up. They shake hands. They leave the tent to their legions, united by a common secret and common blood. Messengers fly to Rome, but they do not bring news of peace. They bring lists. Lists of those who must die so that 3 men can rule. And while the triumvirs leave the island, in Rome, an unsuspecting Cicero prepares for bed, not knowing that his name is already written in red ink at the very top of the sheet that a rider is carrying, driving his horse to exhaustion. The mechanism is launched. The hunt has begun. Rome sleeps, wrapped in pre-dawn fog, unaware that it is already dead. Hooves clatter on the cobblestones of the Appian Way. These are not merchants or pilgrims.
These are the horsemen of the apocalypse. Only instead of scythes, they have scrolls of parchment in their saddlebags. They ride into the city when the first rays of the sun just touch the gilded roof of the Capitol. While citizens are finishing their last dreams, while slaves are blowing on the embers in the hearths, these men, busily, like bill posters before gladiator fights, nail white boards to the walls in the Forum. Wake up and look at these boards. This is not a list of new laws. It is a price list. At the top, in large letters, is the word proscriptions. To a Roman, this word is scarier than the plague, scarier than fire, scarier than a barbarian invasion. It means that the law, which is supposed to protect a citizen's life, is now selling that life. Anyone whose name is written on this board is declared an outlaw. He can be killed. He must be killed. Moreover, money will be paid for his murder. Read into this bureaucratic nightmare. Everything here is written out with the pedantry of an accountant. 25,000 denarii for the head of a senator, 10,000 for an equestrian. To a free citizen, money. To a slave, freedom and money. The killer is absolved of any responsibility. He just needs to bring the head in a bag to the feet of the triumvirs, get a receipt, and go to the cashier. This is not a political purge. This is the privatization of death. Imagine the first passerby walking up to the board, rubbing his sleepy eyes. He is looking for news, but finds his name. Imagine the ground disappearing from under his feet. He looks around. The street is the same, the sky is the same, but the world has changed. Now every person he meets is his executioner. The neighbor to whom he lent money, the creditor he owes, his own slave pouring him wine. All of them now look not at a human being, but at a bag of gold with legs attached. The first list contains only about a dozen names, but this is just the beginning. A trial balloon. Following it, new boards appear. Hundreds of names. 300 senators. 2,000 equestrians. The flower of the nation. The elite. Why? Do not look for ideology here. Everything is much more prosaic and disgusting. The triumvirs need money. The war with Brutus and Cassius requires billions, and the treasury is empty. What to do? Correct. Kill the richest people in Rome and confiscate their property. You are being killed not because you love the Republic. You are being killed because you have a beautiful villa in Campania, a collection of Greek statues, or too much land in Etruria. One loyal supporter of the triumvirs finds himself on the list with horror and screams, "What for?" And they answer him, "Sorry, friend, but Fulvia really liked your estate in Alba. Nothing personal, just business." That is how terror works. It turns murder into routine, into office work. A line forms in the Forum. People are not standing for bread. They are standing with severed heads in their hands, waiting for the quaestor to check the name against the list, put a check mark, and issue a check for payment. Blood drips onto the marble, mixing with the ink of the scribes. But among thousands of names, there is one that stands apart. One name for the sake of which this whole bloody carousel was started. Look at the very top of the list. Marcus Tullius Cicero. His name is written not just by the hand of a scribe, it is traced by the will of Mark Antony and sealed by the silent consent of Octavian. Remember the island near Bononia? Remember that bargaining? For 2 days, the young Caesar feigned resistance. For 2 days, he pretended to protect his father. But in the end, pragmatism won. Octavian exchanged the life of the greatest Roman for an alliance with Antony. This betrayal is the dirtiest page in the biography of the future Emperor Augustus. He knew Cicero loved him.
He knew the old man saw in him the hope of Rome.
And he coldly signed his death warrant, like signing a bill for grain delivery. Cicero became currency. His life was the price for an entry ticket to the dictator's club. Octavian, this boy, turned out to be the scariest of them all. Antony kills in rage, openly, like a beast. Octavian kills quietly, with a slight sadness on his face, explaining it as necessity. Which is scarier, a butcher's knife or a sadist surgeon's scalpel? Chaos begins in Rome. Doors of houses are broken down. People are butchered right at the dinner table, in baths, on the streets. Sacred bonds of marriage and kinship crumble to dust before greed. Wives turn in husbands to keep jewelry. Sons point out fathers' hiding places to get the inheritance sooner. Loyalty becomes a scarce commodity costing more than gold. But there are moments of quiet heroism drowning in this ocean of meanness. Slaves put on their masters' clothes and go out to the killers, accepting death in place of their owners. Wives hide husbands in sewer drains, but the system works flawlessly. Heads continue to arrive. The Rostra in the Forum turns into an exhibition of corpses. Yesterday's colleagues in the Senate now look at each other with empty eye sockets, impaled on spikes. Fear paralyzes the city. People are afraid to speak, afraid to look in eyes, afraid to breathe. If you do not rejoice at the executions, it means you sympathize with the enemies. And if you sympathize, your name might end up on the next list. And Romans learn to smile at the sight of corpses. It is a smile of survival. Terror achieves its goal not by the number of victims, but by the atmosphere of complete hopelessness. You realize there is no law anymore. There is only the will of 3 people sitting in a palace, scribbling with styluses on parchment. Your life, your achievements, your family, all this can disappear in 1 second, simply because Antony needs to pay the 10th Legion's salary. And where is Cicero? Does he know his name is already being shouted by heralds on every corner? The news flies faster than riders. Rumors crawl along the Appian Way, jumping from villa to villa, gathering terrible details. Antony demands your head, whispers the wind in the cypresses. Octavian betrayed you, drums the rain on the roof. At his estate in Tusculum, the old orator receives a letter, or perhaps a breathless friend with a pale face bursts in. We do not know exactly how it happened, but we can imagine the moment. The moment when the world collapses. The parchment falls from weakened hands. Cicero understands. This is the end. There will be no trial, no brilliant defense speech, no exile where one can write philosophical books. This time it is serious. He was sentenced in absentia, without the right to speak. Octavian, his creation, his golden boy, sold him to the killers. He looks out the window. The winter landscape seems alien to him. Every shadow in the garden could now hide a centurion with a sword. He must flee. But where? All of Italy has turned into a huge mousetrap, and the snapping jaws of this trap are already very close.
He gives the order to pack. There is panic in the house. Slaves rush about, gathering things. Cicero takes only the bare essentials: money, some clothes, and, of course, books. Even facing death, he cannot part with his thoughts. The litter is ready. The old man sits in it, feeling his heart beating somewhere in his throat. The villa gates open, and the small procession dissolves into the night, heading toward the coast, to the sea, to a ghostly hope for salvation. But behind them, from the direction of Rome, the trample of pursuit is already audible. The hunting dogs have been unleashed, and they have picked up the scent. Imagine two old men, shaking in closed litters on a rain-washed road. These are not just fugitives. This is Marcus Tullius Cicero, the father of Latin eloquence, and his younger brother Quintus. Just yesterday they were pillars of Rome, men before whom the crowd parted. Today they resemble hunted foxes. They are fleeing from Tusculum toward the coast, to Astura. Their goal is a ship. Their hope is to reach Macedonia, where Brutus and Cassius are gathering a republican army. But look at them. Is this what salvation looks like? They ride in silence. Every squeak of a wheel, every crunch of a branch under a porter's foot makes them flinch. They know. The hunters are close. Antony's killers do not sleep. They scour villas, interrogate servants, follow the trail. Fear has a smell, and inside these cramped litters, it smells of sweat and despair. In Astura, a scene occurs that makes the heart clench. The brothers stop to rest and realize a terrible thing. They fled so fast they forgot the most important thing: money, provisions. They have nothing. How to sail to Macedonia empty-handed? How to pay the captain? How to live in exile? They look at each other. Quintus, who was always more impulsive, makes a decision. "I will return to Rome," he says. "I will sneak home, get gold and supplies, and then catch up with you." It is madness. To return to the lion's mouth when the jaws are already closing. But there is no other way. Imagine this farewell. Two gray-haired men embracing at a crossroads, under the gray, weeping sky of December. They both understand they are seeing each other for the last time. They do not say it aloud, but it is read in their eyes. Quintus turns his litter back toward Rome, toward his death. Marcus Tullius continues the journey to the sea, toward his. Quintus's fate is a separate, short, and gruesome story of betrayal that shows how deeply Rome has rotted. He reaches his house. He hides. But he is betrayed not by neighbors, not by random passers-by. He is betrayed by his own slaves. The very people who ate his bread for years, lived under his roof. They lead the killers to the hiding place. Quintus is killed together with his son. They say the son tried to protect his father, but what can an unarmed man do against professional cutthroats? Their bodies are thrown out like garbage. Loyalty died before they did. The slaves hoped for a reward from the proscription list, hoped for freedom. Did they get it? History is silent, but usually, traitors are despised even by those who use their services. And what about Cicero? He reaches Astura. He finds a ship. It would seem, here it is, freedom. Sails are raised. The coast of Italy, which has become a deadly trap, recedes. But the elements, as if in collusion with Antony, rise against the fugitive. The sea is stormy. Winter winds in the Ionian Sea are merciless. The ship is tossed like a wood chip. Cicero, a strictly land-based, bookish man, is turned inside out by seasickness. He lies on the deck, green, exhausted, humiliated by his own physical infirmity. A great mind locked in a suffering, aging body. And then a psychological breakdown occurs. He orders to turn back. Think about it. Salvation was so close. But he cannot stand the pitching. Or is it not just that? Perhaps, looking at the receding shore, he realized there is nowhere to run. Who needs him in Macedonia? An old man with arthritis and ulcers who only knows how to speak. In Brutus's military camp, he will be a burden, wandering through strangers' corners, begging for lodging, shivering from cold in tents? No. The ship docks at the shore near Circe. Cicero goes ashore. He walks 100 stadia toward Rome.
He walks to meet the killers.
The slaves look at their master in horror. "What are you doing? We were saved!" is read in their glances. He hesitates. This day is an agony of indecision. He changes his mind again. He gets back on the ship. They sail along the coast to Caieta, where he has a favorite villa in Formiae, a summer residence, a place where he wrote his best treatises, where he enjoyed the breeze and philosophical conversations. Now he is going there to die. The storm intensifies. Waves beat against the sides. The wind howls in the rigging as if the Furies themselves are chasing him. Cicero can no longer endure it. "Put me ashore," he wheezes. "Come what may." He steps ashore near his villa. He is broken. He is tired. Tired of running, tired of fearing, tired of the pitching, tired of a life that has turned into an endless nightmare. Thousands of thoughts must be rushing through his head, but one sounds louder than all, drowning out the noise of the surf.
A phrase he throws to his companions, a phrase that will become his epitaph. "Let me die in the fatherland, which I have often saved." In these words is all the bitterness and all the greatness of the moment. He is not running. He accepts fate. He chooses to die a Roman on his own land rather than live as an outcast in a foreign land. This is the last act of his will. If he cannot defeat the dictatorship, he can at least choose the setting for his death. He enters his villa in Formiae. It is quiet there. Dust lies on the statues. He lies down to rest. The slaves, loyal to him to the end, unlike his brother's slaves, persuade him to run again. "They are already close, master. We heard about the detachment. We need to leave through the forest to the sea. There is another ship there." They practically force him, with love and desperation, into the litter. They do not want him to die. They carry him through the dense, dark park toward the sea. Branches whip against the curtains of the litter. Crows, they say, circled over the villa all day, hitting the windows with their beaks, foreshadowing trouble. Now their cawing mixes with the noise of the wind. Cicero lies inside, eyes closed. He hears the heavy breathing of his men. He hears the rustle of fallen leaves underfoot. And he hears one more sound. Hoofbeats. Rhythmic, fast, approaching. This is not the mail. These are not guests. It is the sound he has been waiting for since the moment he began writing the first Philippic. The sound of inevitability. A squad of assassins bursts onto the villa grounds. They kick down the doors of the house, but find it empty. The officer yells at the frightened maids. "Where is he? Where is Cicero?" Silence. No one wants to betray the master. Loyalty is still alive here. But there is always a Judas. A young freedman named Philologus, a man Cicero taught to read and write, whom he raised, whom he gave an education. This youth, with a trembling hand, points the direction. "They went there, to the sea, through the forest paths." The centurion nods. He gives a sign to his men. They turn their horses and rush into the thicket of the park. Swords come out of scabbards with a metallic rustle. In the forest, which smells so sweetly of pine needles and the sea,
The litter with the great old man continues its journey, but time has run out. The noise of the surf becomes louder, but it is drowned out by the cracking of broken bushes behind them. The forest suddenly falls silent. Birds that were screaming a minute ago fall silent. The noise of the wind in the tops of the pines seems unnaturally loud. The rustle of dry leaves under the slaves' feet stops. They stop not because they are tired. They stop because they see what they feared more than anything in the world. The path is blocked. Before the litter, breathing heavily after the chase, stand two men.
In their hands gleams steel, cold and indifferent to the greatness of the one at whom it is aimed. These are not faceless legionaries. The killers have names, and history has preserved them for us, so we can appreciate the full depth of the Roman fall. The first is Centurion Herennius, a professional soldier, a killing machine, a man who simply follows orders. He does not care whom he chops down, a Gaul, a Parthian, or a former consul. He was promised a reward, and he came to collect it. But look at the second one. Look closely at his face. It is the military tribune Popilius Laenus. Do you recognize him? Cicero recognized him, and in that moment, perhaps, it hurt him more than a sword blow. A few years ago, this very Popilius stood before a court, trembling with fear. He was accused of patricide, one of the most terrible crimes in Rome. He faced a gruesome execution. To be sewn into a sack with a dog, a rooster, a snake, and a monkey, and drowned in the Tiber. Who saved him? Who used all his eloquence, all his authority, to prove this man's innocence? Marcus Tullius Cicero. The lawyer saved his client's life. And now, the client has come to take the lawyer's life. Popilius volunteered to lead this squad. He did not just agree, he asked for it. What monstrous, boundless ingratitude. Or perhaps it is the twisted logic of the new era. Perhaps Popilius hated his debt to Cicero so much that he decided to wipe the creditor off the face of the earth so as not to feel obligated anymore? In the Rome of Antony and Octavian, conscience is extra baggage. Betrayal is the fastest social elevator. Cicero's slaves, seeing the killers, clench their fists. There are many of them, about 60 men. They are armed with sticks, stones, knives. They are ready to die for their master. They love him. Determination to fight burns in their eyes. If they swarm all at once, they have a chance to overwhelm the two soldiers, delay them, give the master time to run to the sea. The silence tightens like a bowstring. One word from Cicero, and a slaughter will begin. But Cicero does not give the command to attack. Instead, he makes a gesture that stops time. He raises his hand and calmly, with a voice containing no tremor or fear, orders, "Put the litter on the ground." This is the moment of truth. The great orator who fought with words all his life realizes that words have run out. There is nowhere left to run, nowhere to hide. Any struggle will lead only to the senseless death of people loyal to him. He does not want their blood to mix with his own. This is his war, and he lost it. It is time to pay the bills with the dignity his enemies lack. The slaves obey. They lower the litter onto the damp ground. Cicero pulls back the curtain. Look at him. This is no longer the polished politician in a snow-white toga who crushed Catiline. This is an old man of 64. His hair is matted and covered in road dust. His face is gaunt from insomnia and worry. His eyes are inflamed. He looks exhausted, pathetic. But only until you meet his gaze.
There is no pleading in his eyes. In them is icy contempt for death and for those who brought it. He looks at Popilius Laenas. He does not say, "I saved you." He does not reproach. His silence is louder than any accusation. Popilius looks away. The killer is ashamed to look his victim in the eye. Cicero rests his chin on his left hand, his favorite pose when thinking, the pose in which dozens of sculptors captured him. He looks at Centurion Herennius, who is already raising his sword, and speaks his last words. Not for history, but for the executioner. "Come here, soldier. There is nothing proper about what you are doing, but at least try to kill me properly." Think about that sarcasm. Even on the threshold of non-existence, he remains a critic. He is saying, everything happening is wrong. Your power is wrong. Your laws are a lie. The only honest deed left in this insane world is the executioner's blow. So at least do that well. He stretches his neck out of the litter. He does not squint. He offers his throat like a patient offers an arm for bloodletting. This is an act of ultimate stoicism. He turns his execution into a final lesson in philosophy. He shows Rome that you can kill the body, but you cannot break the spirit of a free citizen. Herennius steps closer. He is uncomfortable. The old man's greatness weighs on him. The centurion's hand, accustomed to the weight of the gladius, trembles. This is not just a murder. It is sacrilege, and even a dull soldier feels it with his skin. The first blow is unsuccessful. The sword slips, not cutting through the vertebrae completely. Blood sprays onto the litter, onto the hands of the slaves who cover their faces and turn away, sobbing. Cicero does not scream. He probably just grimaces from pain and the executioner's unprofessionalism. They can't even kill properly, likely flashes through his fading consciousness. Herennius, cursing, strikes a second time, a third. He literally saws through the neck of the father of the fatherland. It is messy. It is cruel. It is devoid of any solemnity. It is a slaughter. Finally, the head separates from the body and falls onto the grass. In the forest, silence reigns, broken only by the weeping of slaves and the heavy breathing of the killers. It is all over. The voice of the Republic has fallen silent forever. But Herennius and Popilius's work is not finished yet. They have a clear list of demands from Mark Antony. The head is the main thing, but it is not enough. Antony remembers exactly how Cicero inflicted the most painful wounds on him. Not with a sword, but with a pen. The centurion leans over the headless body. He takes the lifeless hands of the old man, the very hands that wrote on the Republic, on the laws, Tusculan disputations, and of course, the fatal Philippics. Chop. Another chop. The hands are severed. Now the set is complete. Popilius Laenas, the man saved by Cicero, possibly helps pack the trophies. They do not bury the body. They leave it there, by the forest path, to be torn apart by wolves and birds. The greatest man of Rome remains lying in the mud like a vagrant. But it no longer matters. Cicero has left this body. The killers mount their horses. Saddlebags are strapped to the saddles, blood oozing from them, leaving a brown trail on the road. They hurry to Rome. They hurry for the reward. They are bringing Antony his gift, and the forest in Formiae fills with sounds again. The wind rustles in the pines. The sea beats against the shore. Nature is indifferent. It does not care that an entire era just ended here. But we,
Looking at this empty, blood-stained litter, understand. The world has changed irrevocably. The sun has set not only over Formiae, it has set over all of Western civilization for centuries to come. Darkness is advancing, and in this darkness, only the triumphant laughter of tyrants is heard. Rome does not sleep, but now it is not the anxious insomnia of waiting, but the drunken stupor of victors. Let us transport ourselves from the cold, wind-swept forest in Formiae to the heart of Roman luxury, the villa of Mark Antony. It is warm here. It smells of roasted meat, Falernian wine, and expensive perfumes. A feast is underway here. Antony is celebrating. He does not yet know for sure if his order has been carried out, but his predator's intuition tells him, tonight he will become the absolute master of life. Do you hear that laugh? Loud, booming, coarse. It is the laugh of a man who hit the jackpot. Around him are sycophants, courtesans, freedmen, the new elite that has taken the places of murdered senators. They eat from golden dishes, not caring that these dishes might have stood on the tables of those whose names ended up on the proscription lists just yesterday. Doors fly open. The noise in the hall subsides. Two enter, Herennius and Popilius Lanus. They did not have time to change. There is road dirt on their armor and brown stains on their hands that water cannot wash away. They walk through the parting crowd of guests like heroes returning from war. But they did not bring enemy legion standards. They did not bring Gaulish gold. They are carrying a leather bag. The centurion walks up to the table where Antony is reclining, and with a dull thud throws the burden right onto the tablecloth, between a bowl of wine and a platter of fruit. The bag is untied. The head appears in the light. A gasp runs through the hall. One of the women screams, but immediately covers her mouth with her hand. Antony leans forward. He takes the head by the gray hair and lifts it like a goblet. He looks into the dead eyes of Marcus Tullius Cicero. Do you expect him to be horrified? That respect for a worthy enemy will awaken in him? Save those tales for children's books. Antony roars with laughter. He laughs so hard that wine spills from his cup. Now, he thunders, the proscriptions can end. The main beast is caught. He is happy. For him, this is not just the death of a man. It is physical proof that no one, do you hear, no one dares open their mouth against him. He orders the killers to be given the reward immediately. Herennius receives 250,000 sesterces, 10 times more than promised. The tyrant's generosity, paid for with blood. But look in the corner of the hall. There, in the shadow of a column, stands a woman whose eyes burn more terrifyingly than Antony's. It is Fulvia, Antony's wife. If you think politics is a man's business, you know nothing about Roman women. Fulvia is the real ruler of this house. She has gone through 3 marriages with the most turbulent politicians of Rome. She has seen street fights, fires, and riots. Cicero hated her. In his speeches, he not only bashed Antony, he poisonously hinted that Mark was merely a puppet in the hands of this domineering fury. He dragged her name through the mud, ridiculed her ambitions. Words hurt women more than men. A man can respond with a fist blow. A woman hoards poison for years. And now her hour has come. Fulvia walks up to the table. She is not afraid of the dead head. She takes it from her husband's hands. She places it on her lap like a favorite toy. Imagine the scene. A luxurious matron in silks and jewels holding a bloody old man's head on her knees. A contrast that makes blood freeze in the veins.
She looks into the face of the one who called her an enemy of the Republic.
"Well," she whispers, and it becomes so quiet in the hall that the crackling of torches is audible. "Where is your eloquence now? Where are your jokes? Where is your venom?" And then she does something that will forever go down in history as a symbol of ultimate female revenge. A symbol of what happens when intellect loses to barbarism. Fulvia opens Cicero's dead mouth. She pulls out his tongue, the very tongue that pronounced the Philippics, the very tongue that defended the innocent and accused the guilty, the tongue that was the instrument of a divine gift. She pulls a long golden hairpin from her hairstyle, sharp as a needle, and forcefully drives it into the dead flesh of the tongue. Once, twice, 3 times. This is not just desecration of a corpse. It is a magical ritual. She is trying to kill not the person. He is already dead. She is trying to kill the word. She wants to nail the truth down so it never slips from these lips again. Gold against flesh. A hairpin against the greatest oratorical gift in history. "Now you will be silent," she hisses, piercing the tongue through. "Now you won't say a word about me." Guests watch this in stupor. Even drunk centurions feel nausea. This is beyond war. This is beyond hatred. This is the madness of power that has lost all boundaries. In this gesture of Fulvia lies the whole essence of the coming era. An era where, for an extra word, they do not just kill, but tear out the tongue so others learn not to do it. Antony looks at his wife with admiration. They are worth each other. 2 predators who just tore apart the shepherd. "Enough," Antony finally says. He learned his lesson. But the feast does not end. On the contrary, the fun flares up with renewed vigor. Cicero's head lies on the table as the main dish, while cups clink around it, and toasts to the health of the triumvirs sound. Musicians play cheerful melodies, drowning out the silent echo emanating from the dead face. Antony, intoxicated by wine and blood, gives the last order for today. An order that will turn private revenge into state terror. "Take this to the Forum," he says, pointing to the head and severed hands. "Let Rome see. Let anyone who wants to open their mouth against us look at this and think twice." Slaves take away the terrible trophy. The feast continues. But the air in the room has become heavy and viscous. The laughter sounds false. Even Antony's most devoted supporters understand. Tonight they crossed a line from which there is no return to the civilized world. They killed not just an enemy, they killed culture. The procession with the remains moves through the night streets of Rome. The city sleeps, but soon it will wake up from a scream of horror. The very hands that once wrote laws now shake in a bag on a slave's back. The very tongue that saved Rome from conspiracies is now pierced by a golden needle and hangs limply in the mouth. Fate prepares a final performance for Cicero, the quietest one, and the loudest. He is being taken to where it all began, to the Rostra. The circle closes. The place of triumph will become a place of shame, or a place of eternal glory. History will decide. But right now, in the darkness of pre-dawn Rome, it seems darkness has won completely. Dawn breaks. The first passers-by gather in the Forum. The sun rises over Rome. Its rays slide over the gilded roof of the Temple of Jupiter, descend the marble columns of the basilicas, and finally hit the center of the Forum. The circle has closed. We are back where we started. Look at the Rostra now. Yesterday it was a podium. Today it is the altar of a new religion, the religion of fear. The workers have already finished their job.
The hammering has stopped. Now only the wind whistling in the empty eye sockets of the head, displayed for all to see, is audible. Romans flock to the square. They walk in silence, heads down, hiding their eyes. No one wants to look, but no one can look away. The spectacle is mesmerizing. The head of Marcus Tullius Cicero towers over the crowd. The very hands that wrote the laws are now nailed to the sides, like the wings of a shot bird. There is a deathly silence in the crowd. It is not the respectful silence of a funeral. It is the silence in which a nation dies. People look at those dead lips and understand, speaking is no longer allowed. Cicero's death is not just the murder of a political opponent. It is a surgical operation to remove the conscience of Rome. Along with this head on the rostra, the very idea of the republic rots. The idea that the law is higher than the man. The idea that a dispute is resolved by arguments, not daggers. The idea that a citizen has the right to say no to a tyrant. Look at the faces of the senators in the crowd. See how pale they are? They understand the message better than others. Antony and Octavian did not just kill an orator. They showed the elite their new place. "You thought you were the rulers of the world," says this deadhead. No. You are cattle. And if you moo in the wrong key, you will end up here, next to him. At that very moment, under the cold December sky, the Senate finally breaks. The spine of Roman freedom is snapped. There will be no more furious debates. There will be no more vetoes. There will be no more Philippics. Only unanimous approval, flattery, and fear will remain. The Roman Senate turns into a decoration, into an expensive theater where actors in togas play the role of free people, knowing that a centurion with a sword stands behind the scenes. And what about the victors? They celebrate. But history is a lady with a dark sense of humor. Look at them through the prism of time. Mark Antony, who is laughing at his enemy now, is doomed. His triumph will not last long. The very boy, Octavian, whom he so underestimated, will devour him. 13 years later, Antony, betrayed by everyone, will plunge a sword into his belly in distant Egypt, having lost everything he had. His name will be cursed, his statues toppled, his memory attempted to be erased. And Cicero? Cicero won. The paradox of history. They killed a man to silence him, but they made his voice eternal. They cut off his hands, but those hands wrote texts that outlived the Roman Empire, and the barbarians, and the Middle Ages. Thousands of years later, when only ruins remain of the palaces of the Caesars, school children on all continents will study Cicero's speeches. His thoughts will become the foundation of humanism. His death will become an eternal reproach to tyranny. Antony thought he nailed the enemy's tongue with a golden hairpin. In reality, he nailed his own name to the pillory of history. But that will be later. And now, in the year 43 BC, evil has won. Look at Octavian. He stands in the shadows, observing the effect. He is not smiling. He is learning. He understands that Antony's crude terror is effective, but short-lived. He needs something more. He needs peace. On the blood of Cicero and thousands of other patriots, the majestic building of the Roman Empire will grow. Octavian will become Augustus. He will call himself the restorer of the Republic, but it will be a lie. He will build a golden cage. He will give the people bread and circuses in exchange for freedom. And the people will agree, because looking at severed hands is too scary. It is easier to close your eyes, nod, and say, "Glory to the Emperor." The Romans disperse from the Forum. They go home, to their families, to their dinners. They will live on. They will bear children, build aqueducts, conquer new lands. But something important, something elusive, has gone from their lives forever.
The spirit of freedom that made them citizens, not subjects, evaporated with the old man's last breath in the Formian forest. 500 years of the Republic have ended. 500 years of the Empire begin. 500 years of order, glitter, marble, and silence. We stand on the ruins of this history and look at the past as if into a mirror. Cicero's death is not a dusty tale from a textbook. It is a warning. It is a reminder of how fragile civilization is in the face of brazen force. How quickly a society proud of its laws can slide into barbarism if it allows fear to defeat reason. Cicero believed the word could stop the sword. He was wrong. In the short term, the sword is always sharper. But in the long run, the word always wins. Because swords rust, empires crumble, but ideas live forever. Cicero's story is finished. His head will decay, his bones will turn to dust. But the question his death asks rings as loudly today as it did 2,000 years ago. And this question is addressed personally to you. Who is the real winner here? The one who lived a long life in shame and fear, bowing his head before a dictator? Or the one who lost his head but kept his honor? And most importantly, if tomorrow a similar board with lists were displayed in the central square of your city, and you were offered a choice, safe silence or deadly truth, whose name would we see at the end of the list?